Joining us from New York, Doug Burns, former federal prosecutor. Doug, it seems like normally with issues of the law, there is yes and no. There's black and white. In this case, it seems like the law is being dictated by pundits on national TV. So what does the law say in this unprecedented situation? Does Trump have the right to pardon himself?
I love the way you put that because it breaks out into a political discussion on the one hand and then the legal discussion. And it's so interesting, as you just said, to see people weighing in with opinions that yes, he can, no, he can't. This is a completely and totally untested legal question. It's never been tested in the courts. There is no answer one way or the other. However, there are a number of arguments, in my opinion, that call into question the idea that the president could pardon himself. The most notable one, seriously, is just the whole conceptual basis of jurisprudence, which is that no man should be judge and jury in his own case, obviously. The other argument is that the Constitution, while it's essentially silent, it says that the president has the power to grant reprieves and pardons, okay? Some people say that grant means confer to somebody else. The point is that, not to be a broken record, the main point is this idea of being the judge and jury in your own case. Let's say a federal judge were indicted, hypothetically, a law school classroom hypothetical. That judge would not be sitting in his own case, okay? So it's the same type of principle. I don't think it's ever going to happen, by the way, a little crystal ball point. But again, where I come down on it is legally, it's foolhardy to give an opinion that yes, he could or no, he couldn't. It's been untested. But if he did try that gambit, which I don't think he will, I think it would run into some fairly serious problems in the courts.
Doug, also under discussion is the question of whether the president can be indicted. Also, that has not been tested. Of course, it was Gerald Ford's pardon that protected President Nixon, but that's after he resigned from office. Can a sitting president be indicted even?
Well, there are two memos, okay? One from the 70s and then what I have been calling a refresher memo in the 90s, saying that because of the weighty, dimensions of the presidency and the duties involved, I mean, that's sort of the main reason they give that, in their opinion, the Office of Legal Counsel, the sort of academic advisory unit of the Department of Justice, they have given the opinion that they don't believe the president, a sitting president, can be indicted. They say, in lieu of that, a president can be impeached and removed from office and then ostensibly indicted. Raises a very tricky question about the statute of limitations. What would happen, for example, if it took too long and the statute of limitations expired? But again, that's kind of getting in the weeds. But there was a memo, back to the pardon question, there was a memo 3 days before President Nixon resigned, August 5th, 1974. And that memo concluded that the president could not pardon himself. So that's interesting. Last point, real quick. Those memos are not binding in a court. They're just advisory memos.
Well, Doug, I want to fit in one more potential what if that is out there. In addition to the pardoning, in addition to indictment, there is the issue of the subpoena. What are the rules? What is the law around Robert Mueller's ability to compel the president to testify?
No, it's a very good question. In the Nixon case, back to Watergate, it's a little bit different because the subpoena was for the tape recordings, as we all know, not for the testimony. President Bill Clinton was subpoenaed. People kind of confused this because what happened was they came to an agreement and the subpoena was essentially withdrawn. But the fact of the matter is that I think that Robert Mueller could issue a subpoena. Separate discussion is the president has the right to challenge it on the grounds of executive privilege and things like that. But that one's a little bit clearer, certainly, to answer your question than whether a president could be indicted or whether a president could pardon himself. The subpoena one's a little easier to answer.
Well, Doug, I'm going to hit you with another hypothetical related to the president's pardon power. We see President Trump warming up to using pardons. He's starting to use it more. If he were to pardon some of the people suspected in the Russia collusion probe or even charged, be it Paul Manafort or his own son, Donald Trump Jr., could that be construed as obstruction of justice in an impeachment hearing?
Yeah, well, that's a really tricky and interesting question that a lot of people have been bandying about. You know, people have gone a little far, sort of automatically concluding that, you know, when he issued a particular pardon recently, that's, in an unrelated case, it behooves me to point out, that telegraphs or signals to those in the Mueller probe, don't worry, you'll be okay. I don't go anywhere near as far as that, but your question is a really good one, and the point is, you know, the president does have tremendous pardon power, and to answer your question, he could pardon people involved in the Russia probe. But again, I think they're smart enough politically, honestly, the administration, that, you know, you have to remember with a pardon, it can be granted any time all the way down the road. You also have commutation of a sentence only in lieu of a full pardon. So my point in simple English is I don't believe in a million years that this president would do that at this point. That would be well down the road, in my opinion.
All right, an unprecedented case from all perspectives, which, as we're saying, is sort of allowing the pundits to come in and decide what the law is on whatever network they are. So it's good to have a little bit of clarity on those very complex legal questions that are surrounding the American presidency today. Doug Burns in New York.